we're going to talk today about how we turn supporters into donors with Crowdfunder. This is firstly a little bit about Unlock Democracy. We're an organisation that is in that democracy space. We didn't quite manage to recruit people at 43p each, like the last presentation said, but we're not too far off that. But we campaign on things like proportional representation, fair and open elections, transparency, devolution, everything in the democracy space, or basically everything that's going wrong in the country right now. We are, well, we still think of ourselves as a brand new staff team, but we all joined about the same time in early 2021. And we switched to engage in networks very, very quickly. It's one of the first things we decided to do. And it's actually the third time we've been here. The first time we did a presentation on how we switched, and we did it in about a month, which was kind of a bit crazy. Last year we were here talking about how we've grown our supporter base, and now we're taking effectively the next step forward with how we turn those supporters into donors. And the story here a little bit is that things were going really, really well. In fact, things still are going really, really well. But we've grown our supporters from 20,000 through to 60,000. We're actually over 80,000 now. We transformed the online fundraising in the organisation. I mean, I will say we inherited a very low base, which is obviously quite nice. But by last summer, we realised that we had to try something new. And actually, we switched from really pushing one-off donations and actually moved much more onto monthly donations. And that did have some success, but it did leave us with an immediate gap in our funding because, you know, £5 a month is fantastic, but that's coming over a long time. Long-term value is great. So we were forced effectively into trying something different, which is so, so good, because actually probably we had got a little bit complacent. Things were working. We weren't necessarily looking for new things to try. And actually this forced us to try something. And our answer was a crowdfunder. And very much we wanted to look about how can we overcome that donor fatigue, but particularly with all these new supporters that we've been recruiting through the techniques that they've just talked about in the first session, is how do you turn them into first-time donors? We're really good at getting people to take actions, you know, sign a petition, write to their MP, write to their local paper, all kinds of things like that, but getting them onto the donating was what we really wanted to try and do. So, Grace.
So we had never done a crowdfund before. We didn't know really where to begin. So I'll take you through how we did it, starting from zero knowledge at all. So we'll talk about our research and planning phase, which was quite extensive because, as I said, we didn't know anything. Then the launch was quite a big deal to us. We really wanted to get that right. Then once we were live, monitoring results, changing course when necessary, which of course it was necessary. And then finally, we'll review the results at the end. See how it went. So the first stage of our planning process, it was really important to us to gather as much knowledge as possible from our allies and experts. We're really lucky to be part of a quite tight-knit democracy sector where we all share knowledge with other organizations. And that was incredibly helpful for us to talk to people who'd done it before. And they gave us some really good tips. Then we all sat down together and agreed on our targets and stretch targets for the crowdfunder. So the obvious thing is the financial targets. So we started with a conservative financial target of £10,000 because we just thought, we don't know. We have no idea how this is going to go. We're going to start with an easy win. We can always change it later. But we also talked a bit about the sort of non-financial goals we were thinking about, which Sean sort of alluded to earlier, is that we were trying to re-energize our existing donors and start to get those new supporters donating for the first time, which is also, so it wasn't just about getting to that end goal, but we also wanted to do it in a way that would achieve those sort of more engagement-y goals. And finally, we're agreeing on our strategy because our goals were to sort of re-energize our existing base. We've decided to do it mainly through just emails to our base. We did a bit of social media. We'll see later that actually didn't really work very well. But we decided we're just going to keep it simple and do an email-led campaign. This one. So now we'd had all that sort of foundational strategy in place. We could start on some of the more interesting stuff. So we decided on kind of the key messaging and branding for the crowdfunder. It was really important to us that we did something that looked a bit different from our normal fundraising, which hadn't been working. So it felt fresh, it felt new, but it also had to still feel like Unlock Democracy. So as you've probably guessed, our colours are purple and green. So we had that really prominently on our page. We also, because our campaigning focuses are so broad, basically anything UK democracy related, we wanted a campaign that sort of took all that in. So we came up on this tagline, "Fix Politics Now," which really covers everything we campaign on, but we found these quotes from both the Prime Minister and the Leader of Opposition, who were sort of both diagnosing the problem as the Westminster system isn't working, it should be reformed. And so we had that kind of cross-party and broad umbrella messaging that we felt that a lot of our supporters could get behind. We then set up our homepage. I won't go into too much detail on that, but that was, we had got some good graphics in place so that anyone arriving on that homepage could just immediately get an idea for what the campaign was about. But as you can see, there was also a lot of detailed information. So if you did arrive on that page, you would come away with a really clear understanding if you were inclined to read the whole thing. And then finally, we did a really detailed plan of our promotional schedule, what emails were going out when, who's responsible for what. It's really important to get that in place before we went live because we knew it was going to be chaotic once we did go live. So good to have that all lined up. So then when we were ready to go live, we started with a soft launch to our kind of most loyal, highest donors, just because we thought it'd be good to get some pounds just on the clock. So when people do arrive on the page, it looks like we're already popular. But then the official launch, we went live to our entire list. We suspected that our first email was going to be really important, so we wanted to really make it count. And so we decided to use the momentum of the party conference season, which last autumn, we went live the day after the last day of Labour Party conference. And the message was, the starting gun has been fired on the general election. So we need you to, get behind us now, donate, etc. So it was using that real life or outside event to run straight into our crowdfund from there. And so once we were live, this was when this spreadsheet here is all that, the suits of all that planning we did beforehand. So you can see all the emails are really clearly scheduled. We've got a variety of senders and a variety of topics. This definitely changed though once we were live because, well, things do change. The main thing we had to sort of get comfortable with, I think, was the amount of emails that we were going to be sending. We normally send 1 email a week, and suddenly we were sending 3 or 4. Another thing that was kind of turned out to be quite effective for us was we did a lot of resends of our best performing emails, so you don't need to duplicate or do more work than you have to. So this sort of planning process was really helpful to us because it allowed us to be flexible once we did go live, but it also made sure that we weren't doing more work than we needed to get all these emails out on time.
So I thought we would just share probably our best 2 performing emails actually from the campaign. The first one there was one we put out about halfway through, which was our first, well actually it was our second match funder, it was our major match funder. Match funds, obviously I'm sure you're all going to know, is where an existing donor puts up some money and effectively doubles the donation. And it is a little bit like rocket fuel in these sort of campaigns. We had a smaller one and a larger one, and we ran the smaller one first. We were a little bit paranoid actually, thinking, "Oh, what if we don't get enough matching the second one when it comes along?" But when this kind of went out, actually, it was really really good. But it was all consistent in its themes, but building that urgency along. And the second email up there was actually the last email. We've been told that generally speaking, the match funded emails will be the most powerful ones, but you are also generating this urgency as you go through the campaign, last email to hit our target. And this actually was the best performing email of the lot. It actually got not the most number of first-time donations, but actually got a bunch of repeat donations. And, you wouldn't think the 12th ask is the charm. What is it that takes someone to get 12 emails across like 3.5 weeks, and the one they respond to is the 12th one? So you have a little bit of thinking about that. But, again, it's kind of trying to keep everything fresh and urgent and the tone really positive in terms of like the difference people can make. And people really responded to that. Because at the start of this, when you think, oh God, we're going to send 12 emails to these people in a really short period, are we just going to put people off? Well, you can if those emails aren't basically incredibly positive, incredibly pushing people to sort of say, look, you could do this. And it's keeping that up all the way through, which I think Alice, who did a lot of our writing, who's sitting over there, did some really great work on. And, the energy, as I say, is really, really important. And one of the great things that we didn't know we were going to get at the start of this was actually Crowdfunder at the bottom has comments from people that have donated. And they were absolutely fantastic. And we're like, we've got to do something with this. So we stick it in the next email. And again, really, really powerful. It was another one of our good emails. Something we did, thanks to the advice that we sought out at the start from people that have done this before, was actually we set out an opt-out where people can just opt out of the Crowdfunder emails and not out of our list as a whole. And we made that really prominent, and people could do it. And people did click it. I can't quite remember exactly how many, but that just protected that list from people that just sort of thought, oh, that's a lot of emails. We monitored everything on a daily basis, and actually I had this on the Crowdfunder setup. You can get emails into your inbox every time someone makes a donation, and I got a little bit addicted to it because I just kept getting these updates. Someone's donated £50, and it was like, oh, I quite like this. Well, this is good. But yeah, we reviewed the data every day. We looked at what we're going to do next, and just tracked it all the way through. And we were flexible. You see, we had a plan at the start, but we have a sort of approach on plan, particularly because we're in the political world. If events happen, let's change the plan a little bit and take advantage of the event. And I think most of the emails we did actually were the ones we planned, but where appropriate, don't be afraid to change. And key to that actually is having a really, really quick sign-off process. We're a small organisation, which helps a lot on that, but it really made a big difference to us. And it means we kept that freshness. We were really current in people's inboxes. It really felt like, everyone had a bit of thought about it and was new and interesting. And actually, we ended up really enjoying that chance to experiment and test out all these new ideas in this. So here's the overview of our results. We kept having to basically up our target, and no doubt we were not ambitious enough at the start. We would accept that, but it did get to, when we raised the sort of overall goal for I think the third or fourth time, we're like, are we going to get this? In truth, actually, people kept donating even though we were over the top of the target, particularly on that final day. They could see. They went on to see, oh, we've hit our target, but they kept donating. And as I say, that was actually one of our best asks. So people like to see success, and I think they loved it, actually. They kept seeing us going, it's going so well, so we're going to try and do even more. And I think people really kind of got on board with that, as we can see with the donations we got.
So just digging a bit deeper into the results, so referring back to those original targets of sort of re-energizing the existing donors, but also hooking in some new ones. In that top corner, that tiny, tiny graph there is just a snapshot of where we were before the crowdfunder in terms of who was donating. And you'll see the yellow bar is people who joined our list before 2021, so before our engaging networks switch. And you can see that we are heavily, heavily dependent on them for donations. And that trend continuing into 2022-23. But the pie charts at the bottom are who donated to the crowdfunder. So the yellow segment, again, is legacy donors, and then the others are people who've joined since 2021, broken down into year. So we have reduced that dependency a bit in the context of the crowdfunder alone. So we were really happy to see that about half of the donations were coming from first-time donors in the crowdfunder, and they contributed significantly to the total, but you'll see that more than half of the money came from those legacy donors. So they were energized and making like higher donations than those first-time donors. So it seemed like there was something for everyone in that crowdfunder. I think that's it for that slide. And so this was just a little breakdown of how some of the emails performed, which Sean's spoken about a bit. So yeah, you can see that last email was by far the most effective, just proving the fact that, yeah, just keep asking. And then that sort of sense of urgency at the end really helps to get people over the line. The first email also will be really important, so it's good to get that right. And the match funders, it's not rocket science that people like to think that their donation will be doubled. But the one that I really enjoy that was so successful was the donor comments one, because obviously that was such an easy email to write. It was just a copy and paste into Canva, do a quick graphic, looks great, out it goes. And then it was one of our better emails, which was really unexpected. We thought that some of our issue-based emails would do a lot better, but they really didn't, which was a surprise to us, and that was great to learn. I'd also add that this was around the time that we were, so Sean mentioned that it's great to embrace the opportunity to experiment and play around with things. This was around the time that the new marketing automation, marketing broadcast tool we were trying to get into the habit of using that and engaging networks. And by the end of the crowdfunder, we were definitely there with it, and we'd learned loads of new features that we could use and made our emails look better. So I think, obviously, it was great to hit our financial goals and our other goals, but just the learning experience of the crowdfunder as well made it, I think, definitely worth just having a go, seeing what happens. I think we've got one more slide. Oh, yeah, this is just, so these are a bit out of date numbers already because we had to do the slides before we had our March figures even, let alone April figures. So this is up to February 2024. But the one thing we were really afraid of was we'd exhaust our list in the crowdfunder, people would stop donating again, we'd be back where we started. That hasn't happened. And we've also seen some of our new donors going on to donate again and become members. So although it's early days, we're not taking anything for granted, we're kind of seeing a continued engagement from those people who donated in the crowdfunder. So just to wrap up, 3 things to take away, if we had to boil it down to 3 things. Crowdfunder, you don't necessarily have to have a big target to build towards. It's just a great way to re-energize the base with something different if you've not done it before, if you haven't done it for a while. Highly would recommend it. Spending on list growth. So we've talked about this big list growth that we've enjoyed over the last few years. Obviously that was expensive, and sometimes you might have conversations with your boss where you're trying to justify spending on list growth. So it's always great, now we have these numbers we can point to, we can see those new donors coming through from that project. So again, having that data is always good when you're having those conversations. And finally, the agility and flexibility. We're a small team, so it was easy for us to have those fast sign-off processes and just move with the moment. But definitely would recommend thinking about how you're going to do that with the way that your teams are set up if you do end up trying something like this yourself. I think that's all from us. It's questions.
Great, thank you. Thank you. That was really cool. And we have a lot of questions. A lot of them are kind of on a similar subject, which is audience segmentation. When you're sending a bunch of emails, I'm assuming you're not just hitting send to the entire list every single time?
No, so the main emails, we actually were doing that, but for the resends, we sent it to, I think it was people that had not opened it or something like that. But yeah, we were sending it to our whole list. We didn't segment it.
Yeah, I'm going to offer a sort of a view on segmentation. Segmentation is fantastic, but if you can actually find out what all your segments are motivated by, if there was a common thread that runs between all your segments, you can just do a blast on it. And actually the campaign we chose here was very deliberate one that we knew had the broadest reach amongst our supporters. And actually what tends to be motivate our supporters is that sort of injustice, unfairness, and that's the theme that ran through every email. And we do some segmentation, particularly for things like first, people that haven't donated before, so there's stuff we do.
Recent donors might not have gotten
There's a little bit of that in there. But virtually all the stuff in this was just going bang full list, but we were very confident it was the right message for everybody.
I think a lot of people were wondering this. Did sending more emails increase your unsubscribe rate or alarm anybody to any extent?
A little. So a lot of people did use that unsubscribe from Crowdfunder option, which I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was enough to make us glad we'd done it, because they would have unsubscribed from our entire list if we hadn't. But we didn't see any alarming uptick. People seemed to enjoy. I don't know if they enjoyed it, but they didn't unsubscribe, so that's...
I think the open rates are really consistent all the way through as well. Yeah. So that's as good a sign as you can have.
And then the resends of popular emails, you just hit resend. I love it.
If they didn't open it, then yes, we clicked resend. Otherwise, no.
And then was this all built in-house? Did you have any agencies?
No.
This was homegrown?
All homegrown. Engaging networks.
I was going to say, it sounds like Engaging Networks really played a major role in this. I mean, it sounds like a really good platform. Okay, so I went one last one. What was the duration of the fundraising campaign, like beginning to end? How long did it last?
4 weeks. 4 weeks, yeah.
4 weeks?
Yeah.